I met her at Self-Reliance Festival and instantly liked her. And I invited her to come out and speak, and she graciously accepted. So without further ado, let's give it up for Dawn.
Thank you so much. I am Dawn Gorham, and I have the Gorham Homestead in Dixon, Tennessee. It's where I have a farm and raise a lot of our own food. I have milk cows and chickens and ducks and meat chickens and a garden and all the things. And so I'm really excited to be here. I'm not super good at professional speaking, I will say, because I haven't done this. It's like maybe my third time. So I hope that y'all will bear with me, because I will have to follow my notes, and it looks like the wind is going to fight me on that. So I just want to ask you, what do you think of when you think of prepping? Does anybody have, what first comes to your mind when you think of prepping? Beans, okay.
Beans, bullets, and Band-Aids.
Right, exactly. Anybody else?
Not having to buy it.
There you go, not having to buy it. So I'll tell you what I used to think of prepping as. In my mind, it was the white bearded dude with the AR on his back and living in a bunker. And even when I came to the realization that prepping was a necessary thing, a thing that I needed to do, it felt intimidating, because that's what was in my mind, and overwhelming, because I didn't know where to start. And I didn't know what my place was as a woman prepper in the prepping world. It's kind of hard to find, where you fall, because all of the prepper expos and all of these things typically are geared more towards men. While women, we love the homesteading, we love our little gardens, we love canning, we love things of that nature, but moving into the prepping aspect of long-term, 25 years, not just what we're going to eat for supper, that's where we have to have that mindset change. And that was what was really hard for me. There's many ways that women can prep alone on a homestead, just for themselves, but today I am going to speak about prepping from the family aspect, prepping for your family as a woman, and whatever family looks like for you, but that's sort of the approach that I'm going to take today. So let's see. One of the things that I really want to hit on is that it's okay for women to cross over and do some of the man duties, and it's okay for men to cross over and do some of the women duties. That's cool. And it's good to know those skills. It's good to know how to do the things if your man's not there or if your woman's not there. Guys, you need to know how to cook for yourselves. You need to know how to properly do the dishes. We need to know how to run a chainsaw. We need to know how to do some of the things that we need to do if you're not always there, not always 24/7. But I feel like if SHTF were to ever actually happen in a catastrophic capacity, I think we're going to see a reversion back to our traditional roles pretty quickly. I think those roles will be clearly defined, and women will start to do more of what women do if there's a man and a woman, and men will sort of lean back to doing the things that men do, and that's okay. We've got to sort of kick the idea of feminism to the curb. As far as, I'm a tomboy, don't get me wrong. I love to do all the things that guys do. When I was a kid, I wouldn't wear a shirt till I was 11 years old. I had a boy bicycle, all of the things. But as I've learned, and so it was really hard for me to learn to let somebody do the man things and do for me. Because it was that mentality of, I don't need no stinking man. I can do it. I can do this for myself. I don't need you. And as time has gone on, I've more and more accepted that it's okay. We don't have to be, we're not equal. We're equal in the sense of spiritually equal, but we are not physically equal. And that's okay. When I was doing my outline for my talking points, the very last thing that I had listed was self-defense. And I think that is because I was coming at it from a woman's perspective. And I have all of these 8 other bullet points that I wanted to really talk to you about, and I got through each and every one of them, and I got down to self-defense being last. And I think that was a mistake on my part, because I think that's something that is so overlooked by us women, that self-defense really needs to be a top priority. How many of you carry? I want to know how many women, okay, how many out of all of you, guys and girls, carry on a daily basis? All right, how many women carry on a daily basis? Like every single day, it's part of your outfit. All right, cool. That should be something that we do every single day. And for me, it is because I am home alone on my farm all day long. And my husband is at work and my son is at school. And my neighbors cannot see me, nor can they hear me. So if something were to happen, and I know that I'm vulnerable in that aspect, and if something were to happen and I did not have a weapon on me, I am very much a sitting duck. And it's really good. We should all take women's self-defense classes. We have plenty of people in our community that teach those, but I'm going to tell you that you also need to have your weapon, because testosterone is an unfair advantage. It doesn't matter what discipline that you learn as far as martial arts or self-defense or anything else. When it comes right down to it, testosterone is going to win every single time. And you can ask the women in women's sports right now. They're seeing it, they can feminize them down all they want to, but men are still going to beat women in the physical aspect. So that being said, it's great to have those skills, but it's better to actually train and have your firearm on you at all times and carry a knife. The reason that I carry a knife is because if something were to happen and I can't get my firearm, I can get to my knife. And I also keep a knife attached to my headboard, so that if someone were to attack me in the night, or my husband's not there or whatever, I can get my hand to that knife to be able to hopefully get my attacker off of me. So we need to train. We need to do some sort of tactical gun training with a professional. And you don't have to do it with other women. Some of us women like to do it with other women because we feel more comfortable. But that's not necessary. You can hop into a group of, men, and they will work with you and be super kind to you. Whatever your level is, they will bring you and make you better. So most of us tend to be on board with our husbands prepping, or our men prepping. But when it comes to things like personal security, we tend to kind of want to bury our heads in the sand. And we want them to kind of take care of it. We want them to make the plan. We want them to talk to the other men. We want them to know that they're going to be there to protect us, and that's good. We have bred the manliness out of the men, and we need to let them be men. We have bred the womanliness out of the woman. We took them out of the home. We made them go to work. We have shamed women for wanting to stay home with their family. And while it's not a requirement, I'm not saying that works for every family. We should not shame men for being men, and we should not shame women for wanting to be women. That being said, let me get back to, I've kind of lost my train of thought. Yeah, we kind of tend to have that normalcy bias, where we as women think it won't happen to us. Like, it will happen over there, but it won't happen here. It happens overseas, but it doesn't happen here. And so we just really need to take part in the security plan with our family, our neighbors, whoever is doing those plans, because you need to know the plan. If something happens to the man or whoever is protecting you, You either might need to have that person's back, or what happens if he goes down and you don't know the plan? What happens if you can't protect your family because the person who was supposed to protect your family has been shot or injured or whatever? And that leads me into my next point of we are also the caretakers. Like, how many of you have husbands that like don't want to seek medical treatment? Or men? It doesn't have to be your husband. It could be your friend living on your farm or whatever. They will like come into you and be like, I'm fine, I rubbed dirt in it. And you're like, but I can see the bone. We need to do something. So we're the caretakers. Like, we're the ones who encourage better health. We encourage, them to seek medical treatment when necessary, or go to the doctor, or get your, whatever, get your tests, quit smoking, whatever it might be. So we are pretty much the family nurse. And so as a woman prepper, one of the things that we can do to be prepared is to, one, take a CPR first aid type training. And once you get that under your belt, then a homestead medical or first responder type training, because there might be a time when help's not coming and you can't get that person to the hospital. Do you know how to use a tourniquet? Do you know how to stop the bleed? Do you know how to deliver a baby? And the reason that I say that is because if things really go sideways, and you might have a young girl in your family, and then you might not know she's even talking to the boy down the road, but all of a sudden you've got a baby and it looks like your neighbor. That's something you need. I'm serious. Stuff happens. It's not cool. It's not what you want. It's not ideal, but things happen. So you need to be prepared to know how to do those sort of things. And in conjunction with that, it's really, really smart to learn some basic herbal medicine. And I would recommend that you take an herb a week. Figure out what your family's, your ailments are, what you suffer from, and figure out an herb that grows close to you and learn about that herb. Or an herb a month, whatever you want to do. It's not going to do you really any good to learn about an herb that only grows in the mountains of Indonesia, right? Because you're not going to be able to get it. So learn about something that's in your own backyard that does the same thing. Because pretty much all herbs, that herb probably has the same constituents as some herb that actually grows on your property. So that's what, do any of you like practice herbalism or learn or like herbalism? Do you make salves and tinctures and all that good stuff? That's really, really smart. That's a really good thing to do. I have learned, my husband has high blood pressure, and I have learned that berberine is a really good supplement to take along with, he takes a low dose high blood pressure medicine. He was on like the highest dose he could take and it wasn't doing any good. Once we added berberine, Ceylon cinnamon, that stuff has gone way down. Oh, and olive leaf extract. I'm sorry. That's another one that's really, really good. And I've figured out that the barberry shrub, it has really high concentrations of berberine. So I'm going to plant that on my property to make sure that I always have that. So if I ever need to make tinctures out of it, the root or the leaves or the the stems, whatever, then I have that as a backup. We are also our family nutritionist.
Yeah.
Right? It's really, really important for us to learn what real foods are. It is not going to do you any good to prep a case of Cheetos. I'm looking at you, Nicole. So beans and rice are really good. They will give you the calories and the complete protein that you need to survive. But they are not going to provide you what you need to thrive. And in times of catastrophic things happening for an extended period of time, your body goes through so much stress that if you do not provide the proper nutrition for yourself, you're going to get really, really sick. And so that's really, really important to prep for things that are not just empty calories. You need to prep for full nutrient density. You really need to think about your good fats. prep for those. Kick all the seed oils and all that stuff out of your kitchen. Keep your lard, your butter, your olive oil, things like that are good for you, because healthy fats is the number one thing that you, in my opinion, that you can do to improve your health. Kicking all that other stuff out is super important. Another thing that you can do is to grow your own garden, preserve your own food. That's how I got started in all of this, was that our son had ADHD, and he was borderline autistic. And so we headed down this path of organic food and kicking out all the red dyes and all that kind of stuff. And having our garden, or growing our own garden, was the only way that I could ensure that I was getting what I thought I was getting. So gardening, preserving, that's what I was saying. Gardening and preserving are some of the main things that you can do to help with your family's nutrition. We are also, and you should teach your kids about it. That's one of the things that you can also do as you go. Teach your kids why you do these things, because that is also a good prep. You're prepping for the future. You're building the future and the kids, and having them follow along beside you and see what you're doing. And we are also our children's educators. We saw during COVID what the effect that it had on kids. They were having to learn online. They were struggling, and when they did go back to school, they were forcing them to be masked. The homeschool kids hardly even knew anything was happening. And so they had such an advantage over the public school, government school kids. Even my kid went to private school. Same thing. We dealt with all of the same issues. I can't homeschool, and I understand that everybody cannot do that. We're almost done with high school, and it just wouldn't make sense at this point. But, one of my greatest regrets in life is not that I didn't become this big, huge country music singer. It's that I didn't stay home with my kids. It's that I was not there because I feel like I missed so much. And we can prep for that education. One of the things that you can do as, mom, or as the female prepper, is to build up your library. Buy the old books. Go to your used bookstore and buy your favorite novels, things that you think that they should read. Buy instruments, ones that are not electric. I have a piano, I have 2 acoustic guitars, a snare drum, a harmonica, and a violin. We don't push our kids to do music anymore. And if there's a situation where there's nothing else to do and they don't have the internet, instruments could be a really good, useful, beneficial, mentally beneficial way for them to pass the time. And that's something else that sort of falls on us, is unfortunately the entertainment of our families. You can buy old playing cards, puzzles, keep those things in your preps so that your kids and your families, board games, things like that, so that everybody has something to do. And that's also something that could bring your community together, around you, your neighbors. I have several neighbors that I know over the years have played instruments, and I guarantee you that if we were in a situation for an extended period of time, all of those people would be in my yard playing my instruments, and I would love it. And you need things like that. When things are bad, you need things that still bring you joy. You still need things for people to do to pass the time, so that they're not constantly sitting and thinking about the bad things that are going on in the world. So that's one of the things I recommend for that. We're also our family's purchasing agent, right? Like, we do all of the supply ordering, right? Grocery shopping, pretty much. That's sort of one of those things that's been relegated to us. Let me ask you this. Men, I'm going to target you guys for just a second. What would you do if your wife was gone, unfortunately? Say your wife passed. You have a 12 or 13-year-old daughter, and things go bad, and you can't go to a store, you can't do anything. How would you teach that young lady about personal hygiene down there? It's an uncomfortable conversation to have, but it's a conversation that needs to be had. We don't think about things like that because we don't want to. It kind of gets, all of those kind of hygiene, girl hygiene things kind of get pushed because it's taboo. It's not cool to talk about it. It's gross. We don't want to talk about it. But we need to stock up on tampons. We need to stock up on pads. What are you going to do if you've got a 13-year-old girl with an awful yeast infection and you can't go get diflucan? What are you going to do? She's crying. It's awful. We need to think about having those things on hand for things of that nature if, things ever go really, really bad. We need to think about supplies for any medical stuff that you have if you're on prescriptions. If you could stock up on those, if you're able to do that, that's really, really good to do. Have some antibiotics on hand, first aid supplies, a full trauma med kit. That's all of that stuff that you really need to have on hand, and you need to know how to use it. How many of y'all have ever had any medical training? I know. First aid. Have you had anything beyond that?
Probably.
Okay. All right. Cool. Okay. Okay. Perfect. Perfect. Yeah, that's something that is going to, unfortunately, guys can handle trauma. Don't get me wrong. They can handle that initial emergency situation, pretty well. But when it comes to long-term care of wounds and sick people and things like that, that tends to fall on us ladies. And that's cool. That's fine. That's what we do. So we just need to have a plan, need to have supplies, need to have the medical ability and knowledge to be able to handle that.
You don't have enough gauze.
Yeah, you never have enough gauze. I don't care how much you have. You never have enough. We are also our family's bookkeeper for the most part, right? Somehow along the way over the generations, the guys just sort of dumped all the bill paying on us. And I'm sure there's still, I'm not saying it's everybody. I know there's some guys out there that probably still pay the bills. But for the most part, it's the women. We do the they bring home, a lot of the times, not always, but they bring home the money. And we bring home money too, a lot of times. But we do the budgeting, and we do the bill paying. And it is I'm just going to say, spend less than what your husband makes. Because that's a really big part of prepping, is having a little bit of money put back, not just in investments, whether that be savings accounts, 401ks, whatever, silver, something that you have in your safe. Bullets, I also consider that an investment. Fishing pole, my husband would consider that an investment. Trees, think of that as an investment, right? Anything that you get a return from or that you can resell for something of value is an investment. And as the way I look at prepping, we like security. Women like to feel safe. We like that financially, and we like that personally. And there is no bigger flex in the prepping world than having both financial security and food security. So those are two things that we really need to look at. Try not to have a whole bunch of debt. Try not to have, more money, spending more money on a monthly basis than you have coming in. Just trying to keep, because you're less fragile. You're less able to be controlled when you completely control everything about your life. So that's just something else to think about. And we are the home manager. We are the keeper of the schedule, right? We do all things that have to do with scheduling for our family. And I want to tread lightly when I say this, but as women preppers, we really have to think about being kind. Being kind to our spouses, and being kind to our children, being kind to our neighbors, because that's a habit. And I'm going to attribute this to Jenny Hill. Nicole told me this on the way here, and it's really stuck with me. Love is about caring more about the other person, how you make them feel, than you care about how they make you feel. It's about doing more for them and not expecting in return than you expect them to do for you. And that's a really good habit to get in while times are relatively normal. Because when times get bad, tension gets bad, tempers get bad. And if you're already in a habit of doing this all the time, bickering all the time, yelling all the time, that's just going to become way amplified and nothing's ever going to get done. You're never going to accomplish anything. You're just going to be at odds all the time. And so I would really encourage you to look at that. There's, we women, like I said, we are the caretakers, and it's kind of not our responsibility, but it's, it's important for us to be kind to everyone. Because we set an example. We set an example for our kids. We set an example for our community and for our families. And so I feel like that's kind of an important, preparation for things going really bad. Do y'all have any questions? No? Nobody? Nothing? Okay. Well, I think I have pretty much covered all of the topics. Is there anything else that I mentioned to you earlier, Nicole, that I have not hit on? Because I think I've rushed through it, but I feel like I've pretty much hit on all my topics. Anybody?
How many rounds do you send down range every month?
How many rounds do I send down range every month? I'm going to be honest, I have not shot my gun in 3 months. But typically I do try to, and I'm a Glock girl, because I feel like once I've taken apart and put back together one Glock, I could do all Glocks. And so I do shoot. I just haven't done it in the last 3 months. I've just been so busy. I have run myself completely ragged. Do any of y'all practice? Do y'all like to shoot? Any women just like to shoot?
I like to shoot, but I don't make enough time for it.
See, I don't either. I don't make enough time for
And
it.
we have a range on property,
Nice.
yeah.
Yeah. I would encourage you to just go out and shoot. Is there anybody that wants to carry but doesn't carry? Like you're just scared to do it? No? You?
There's hands this high because they don't want to admit they're not.
They don't admit it. Okay, that's fine. I'll tell you, I was scared. I was scared to death. For the first year after I got my carry permit, I carried my gun completely empty on my hip for an entire year. For the second 6 months, I carried it loaded, but I did not have one in the chamber. And it wasn't until one of my police officer friends, I worked in the courthouse, said, if you don't have one in the chamber, you may as well just use it as a club. And so I finally started carrying one in the chamber. I was just scared to death. I was scared to death it was going to go off. I was scared to death I was going to pull it out of my pocket and shoot my foot off. I just didn't know. And so, it just takes, it's like anything else. And the best, I'll tell you another thing that police officer told me is that the best gun for a woman to carry is the gun that she's willing to carry. It doesn't matter. I carry a 9mm. I'm comfortable shooting it. I can shoot it right-handed, left-handed, whatever. But I was scared when I took my permit test to shoot a .22. I was terrified. And so, it's just all about what you get. It's just repetition. It is literally just muscle memory, putting in the time, getting the comfort level, and just doing it every single day. Every single day.
So I carried a 45 for a long time because it's what I had.
Right? That's the best gun.
I got a 9, and it doesn't print. But my 45 looked like this giant, because women's bodies are shaped differently,
Yeah.
so you really print.
Good print.
Men are, I'm very jealous of the men
Who are-
hip gun things that you got going on there.
Yeah. And I keep saying I'm going to get inside the waistband holster so that,
You want to try one?
sure.
You can try mine while you're here.
I think I'll try it. Just because I know that you can't see it, and I know that no matter where I go, I've got hips. Like all women have hips, so you're going to see my gun no matter what I'm wearing. unless I have a jacket on over it, which I do in the winter. Anything else?
I'm right-handed, right eye, right everything. Well, I lost my right eye vision.
Oh, gotcha.
Picking up a rifle automatically goes right-handed. And you can't put your head over there. I need to muscle memory,
Yep.
get rid of it, and you learn how to shoot left-handed.
Yep. My husband is right-handed but left eye dominant.
So that's fine.
Yeah, but even he struggles though. So that's the point I was going to make, is that I understand yours is even worse because I've seen him struggle with just that little bit of a difference.
I shot with both eyes open all the time.
Oh, okay.
But now you can't get your eye over there without looking out of the corner.
I gotcha.
So for somebody who hears this whole list and is not sure where to start, what advice do you have for them?
I would start with food security and personal security myself.
And how do you figure out the plan for food security?
So food security for us is I have a planner, and my planners have planners, and my calendars have calendars, and my notebooks have notebooks. I write everything. Like you can ask Nicole, I've written my speech here, even though I've flown through it. I literally wrote out word for word 3 times. Just because that's the only way I can commit anything to memory. Where was I going with that?
How do I make a food plan?
Yeah, how do I make a food plan? So I write down, that's where I was going with that. I write down how much of everything that I use per month. Like I know I go through 1 pound of coffee in 3 weeks.
That's amateur numbers.
I know, but that's what we go through. I do that. I go through 1 quart of creamer a week. No, I'm sorry, not a quart. I go through a gallon of creamer in a week. But I make all of my own creamer. So that's one of the things. That's another big flex. If you want, I'll talk to you about milk cows all day long. If anybody wants to talk about that. That's my big homestead flex. Because I know that I have chickens, I have a milk cow, and I have a garden. And I have beef cows as well, and meat chickens, and other things that I could process if I needed to. But if I can make all my own dairy and all of my own, anything that I need to make from eggs, and then my vegetables and my meat, I'm pretty good. I don't have to do a whole lot of grocery shopping, except for when the 16-year-old wants, pizza pockets or whatever. So, but I would recommend that you figure out what you use. As Jack and Nicole always say, store what you eat and eat what you store. And so figure out what you like. There would be no sense in me storing beets because I hate them. So there's no point in that. So figure out, what your family's needs are. The Mormons, the Church of Latter-day Saints, on their website has a really good printout that you can look at, and you can put in, how many family members you have, and you can figure how much of a certain thing that you need for a year, and that's just your starting point, and then you can tailor that to, what you actually use for your family. You have a question, sir?
In Peoria, we had a preparedness get-together. It was at the Mormon church. It wasn't really Mormon.
Right.
But they had 22 presenters or tables. They were going to present, but they decided we didn't have time for that. We had tables people would go to. Mm-hmm. The emergency preparedness was there just north of us. They came to Dr. Lottie, who will be here tomorrow, and explained to him, said, this is great, because if we have an emergency, 2 different little emergencies, we're going to be booked. We can't help anybody else.
Right.
You have to be prepared. And they've actually lined up for a larger area. I don't know how many we had, 200 there that day or more. But they're planning on having
That's
a
awesome.
larger one next year. If anybody's interested in Peoria, I don't know.
So building community, and that's something I actually meant to touch on. When I moved to our property in December of 2020, within a week I had secured the phone numbers of every single person on my street and texted them to introduce myself, to let them know that I had moved onto the road. And 3 years later, we're very close. I give milk, to some of them that have children. We have cookouts, we have community meetings. I have become the secretary treasurer of the local little community club. building community is one of the best things that you can do for preparedness, because as much as you would love, like I would love to live next to Nicole, but that's never going to happen. And so I have to do what I can and build the community with the people that I have, because those are the people that you're going to be stuck with. I mean, like it or not, if you can't get off your road, those are the people that you're going to depend on and you're going to need. So making friends with them and doing for them, and and building that sense of camaraderie with your neighbors is really a smart thing to do. We also started the Dixon County Homesteaders Alliance group in my county, and it's over 1,000 members. And every month we have a topic at my farm. We've had ham radio, we've had beekeeping, we've had herbal medicine, we've had a homeschool teacher come and talk to them. I mean, every month it's a different topic, and that has really helped to strengthen the homesteading and prepping community around me. Like, there was a lot of people that showed up and would see someone that they knew and would be like, I didn't know you did that sort of thing. I didn't know you prepped. I didn't know you canned or grew a garden or whatever. So
I didn't know you cared.
I didn't know you cared, exactly, or that we're like-minded. Like, it's so taboo to talk about things anymore. But when you see somebody show up at something like a Homesteaders Alliance group, all of a sudden that tension is gone, and you feel comfortable to talk to them about things that you're concerned about, or that you might think is going on in the world that you wouldn't normally feel comfortable just talking to somebody about. So it's been a really helpful thing for us, and we've all learned a lot. We had a bee install last month, and we installed bees on my property, and it was helpful for me to have someone in the community come and do that, because I'm new to bees. It's my first time to ever have them, and if they had not stepped up and come and helped me with that, I would have just been lost and probably swarmed and stung more than I was actually. I got stung. Oh, so bad. But that was my own fault. It was my own doings. So that's something else that you can do. Just kind of get to know your people and try to bring in more like-minded people and bind with those people, because as the community grows, we become stronger. We become harder to stamp out. And if we can rely on each other and fall on each other, many hands make light work. And if you can get your neighbor or two or three to come help you with fencing, all of a sudden that 3-day job becomes a 1-day job. And fun, exactly. I love canning with other women more than I don't like standing there, because I built a building that we call the cannery, and it's where I do all of my food preservation, so I don't have to have any of that mess in my kitchen. And I can go down there and do my thing, and if I'm done, I'm tired, I can just leave a mess, and I don't have to, worry about it. But I don't like being down there by myself. And so I will say that we have several little ladies in my neighborhood, some of the little older ladies that have been canning their whole lives, will come down and it's just the cutest. We have a quilting bee. Women sit around and we're all learning how to quilt. We did that last winter. And so it's just, you can do fun things, and building a community is one of the greatest long-term security things that you can do for yourself. Yes, sir.
When you do your food thing,
yes, sir.
Do you assign calories to amounts?
I don't. I know some of the hardcore preppers do that sort of thing. I put an expiration date. That's all I really need to know. Like when I do freeze drying stuff, I'll put, I did it on such and such date, expires 25 years. I don't really keep up with how many calories, because my food preservation is so well-rounded that I really don't need to keep up with how many calories we have, I don't think. I could be wrong, but I've never done that.
You know how much your family eats in a year.
I know how much we eat in a year, but I don't know how many calories we consume. That makes sense.
That depends on whether you're sitting back watching TV every day or you're prepping.
Or exactly.
So it changed as soon as the electricity went off. And
absolutely. And we do that once a year. Back in January, we had what we call the pantry challenge and the power challenge. And that's where we only eat strictly from our pantry from an entire month. We cannot go to the grocery store. We cannot go out to eat. And my 16-year-old was losing his mind. Because he couldn't, it was nothing instant. Like he couldn't microwave anything because we didn't have anything. He had to wait. And it was a really good challenge for us because we saw where the holes were. We saw what we needed. We do have a generator that's an automatic generator that comes on if the power goes off because we're on well water. And that was one thing that scared me was I didn't want to be without water. So we had the generator put in, but we will turn that off completely occasionally for a weekend and just see how we do. And that's something that'll really show you, like especially if you do it in the winter. Like doing it in the summer, you can kind of get by because you can go out and pick stuff, or you can go down in the basement where it's not quite as hot as it is upstairs. But in the winter, it's a little bit harder and it shows you more of what your weaknesses are. Any other questions? Yes, sir. Absolutely. My son is 16 years old now, and he is totally fine. He actually was nonverbal, and about 2 weeks after we switched over to that, and our doctor had us, he was a functional medicine doctor, had us doing some other things like giving him B12 shots, and I can't remember what we were making sure we gave him plenty of bone broth and stuff like that, but 2 weeks after we did that, he was, and his receptive language, let me just back up and say his receptive language was always fine. He knew what we were saying, but his expressive language, he could not get any words out. We even used sign language. 2 weeks after that, he was talking in complete sentences, like complete sentences. So I do believe 100% that it makes a difference, and we've pretty much stuck to that. Because he does have ADHD, but he's non-medicated. We deal with it with diet. Yes, sir.
Did you mention physical fitness as a goal?
That was on my list and I skipped it. Yes. So I do believe physical fitness is something that's really important because, again, like what I said, when you get in times of stress and your body gets under stress, if you are a smoker or 300 pounds overweight or whatever. I mean, I'm almost 50 years old. I'm going to be a little overweight probably for the rest of my life, but I'm not obese. And we try to keep it, at a reasonable body fat percentage. And we try to keep our health in as good of shape as possible. And I have learned that women, when you get to 50, you got to start lifting some weights because our muscle mass just goes to crap. Yeah, men too. Unfortunately, y'all end up with a bunch of injuries. And so then it's hard, you've got a bad shoulder, and so it's hard for you to lift. And, and it tends to happen to men, it seems like, more than women. Like, we can do some weights and that sort of thing. We don't end up having some of us have bad backs, but it doesn't seem to happen to us like it does men. But it is really important to try to be as physically fit as possible, because if you're no good to anybody if you can't walk up the hill with your 50 pounds of whatever you need to carry. Anything else? All right.